Друзья, добрый день. Рады приветствовать вас на нашем вебинаре, посвященному Австралии сегодня. В первую очередь, перед тем, как мы начнем, пожалуйста, напишите, слышно ли нас нормально и все ли хорошо. Отлично. Итак, думаю, мы можем приступать. Супер. Еще раз приветствуем вас на нашем мероприятии сегодня, посвященному Австралии. Сегодня мы будем разговаривать на разные темы. Постараемся выстроить такой диалог, потому что мы решили не делать какие-то большие презентации, а больше поговорить о том, вообще, каково это жить, учиться в Австралии, почему студенты выбирают обучение в этой стране. И здесь сегодня мы собрались больше как бывшие выпускники, люди, которые прошли определенный путь образовательный за рубежом. И с нами сегодня как раз Игорь Великий, который сам учился за рубежом. Игорь у нас из Словакии, хотя его имя очень похоже на наше, да, он хорошо понимает по-русски, но говорит в основном по-английски.
А.
А, Да, поэтому сегодня разговор у нас будет в основном на английском языке. И мы, конечно, собрались как профессионалы из образовательной индустрии. Игорь представляет университет Торренса в Австралии, который является одним из многих университетов австралийских, но который э, очень сильный фокус имеет на том, чтобы студенты получали максимально практические знания и навыки во время своего обучения. Я лично представляю компанию Students International, которая занимается помощью студентам с любыми вопросами, которые связаны с образованием за рубежом. И начиная с того, что мы помогаем непосредственно с зачислением, с курированием студентам, то есть в любой момент к нам приходят студенты, которые, например, не знают, с чего начать, и мы садимся с каждым из них и общаемся, разговариваем, узнаем вообще, что им интересно, для чего они хотят поехать за рубеж. И в зависимости от этого помогаем максимально им определиться вообще с тем, что они хотят получить в итоге. И мы устраиваем подобные мероприятия специально для того, чтобы все студенты могли быть полностью проинформированы и могли принять правильное решение, основанное не только на том, что они где-то увидели, прочитали в интернете, а на основе того, что, скажем, они узнали от людей, которые прошли этот путь, и смогли достичь того, чего они хотели. Вот. Помимо этого, мы также помогаем с любыми моментами, которые связаны с зачислением, рассказываем о том, как получить визы в разные страны, в зависимости от того, куда вы все-таки планируете поехать. Проводим экзамен IELTS, который очень важен, так как это один из немногих экзаменов, которые вообще нужно сдавать для того, чтобы поступить в университеты за рубежом. Это экзамен по английскому языку, и к нему также можно подготовиться, и здесь мы тоже помогаем. Но не буду больше задерживать вас с таким предисловием. Лучше перейдем сразу же к нашему разговору с Игорем. Igor, let's switch to speaking English.
Thanks,
Probably.
thanks. Because like you mentioned, I can speak Russian, but очень плохо. Yeah, sorry about it. But anytime it's lovely to back. It's lovely to be back to Russia. And
Mhm,
Moscow, Saint Pete, Kazan. It's
mhm,
lovely, and I always enjoy it because it's kind of like a learning language for me as well. I try to
mhm,
go and talk to people in a subway, etc.
Mhm.
So it's kind of adventure for me, but yeah,
Mhm.
let's stick to English.
Let's stick to English. Well, we'll practice Russian along the way.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good.
That's great. So, Igor, I've already mentioned that you've completed your studies overseas, as well as I did. And first of all, I just wanted to find out, did you have any challenges as an international student when you've actually started your course? Was it really that dream experience that most people think of studying abroad, or you actually had to go through some of the challenges yourself and overcome
Mhm.
yourself and grow as a person in the end?
Perfect. Yeah, definitely there are challenges. That's
Mhm,
correct. I'll be honest with you guys.
mhm,
One of the biggest challenges is probably the language.
mhm,
Because even if you speak English very well, if you are fluent, it's still it's different language, right? So it's
mhm,
different story if you study in Russian at home and then you come to the, let's say, university in US, Australia, whatever place, and you are supposed to take all the classes in English. So it means like interact with your lecturer or professors in English, think in English, okay? Because that's what it is important thing in English as well. And also the structure of the education system is a bit different. Like you did mention, I'm from Central Europe, from Slovakia, which is
mhm,
pretty much the same system like you guys have in Russia. So, and once you study overseas, whether it's Australia or it's US, it's a little bit different. So,
mhm,
so definitely it's about adjusting to the new system in school, and definitely the language. I don't want to say language barrier, but yeah, that's a challenge. Just um, you know, kind of switch your mind and start thinking in English when you do assignments, for example, research papers, etc.
mhm,
Okay, you need to think in English, and the approach towards the assignment. So that's definitely the challenge.
mhm,
However, it's not bad. I mean, it's just like something you need to overcome. But in terms of the other part of your question, like whether it's so really so good or not, well, I would say the system, whether you study at the American university or even in Australia, because I've been now working for Australians like 7 years already.
mhm,
Um, the difference between, let's say, Europe, Russia, and their education system is like well, long story short, here maybe we take that much, and over there they take that much, but it doesn't mean like the education is lower quality or something. No, but they try to really focus more on practical things.
mhm,
So doing presentation, being able to work in the groups on the projects, case studies, etc. Okay, so it's less memorizing, we can say, and
mhm,
it's more about practical things which you're going to use in your life.
mhm,
Or because these days, let's be honest, guys, I mean, it's not about memorizing stuff. It's about know where to find it, right? We got
mhm,
internet these days. We got smartphones, everything. Like access to the information is really, really quick or fast. We can say we can
mhm,
find out pretty much everything these days very quickly. So it's not about like memorizing that too much. I'm not saying it's bad to memorize stuff. No, it's always good, for your
mhm.
memory, etc. But these days it's really about how to find the things, where to find them, right? So that's the difference. Challenge is language, but on the
Mhm.
other hand, the education system is a bit different, focus more on practical things compared to Europe, I would say.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree with you on
Right?
that. I totally agree with you on that. No, language is a barrier in the way. And I remember when I went to Australia for my studies, I actually completed high school in Ukraine, and then I moved to Australia to do my bachelor's at Macquarie
Cool.
University. But the challenge that I faced was that I actually had a pretty good score in IELTS, which was 6.5, which was
Perfect.
actually more than the requirement
Mm-hmm.
to get into the program. But as soon as I started learning, I understood that, well, no, I couldn't understand everything, and I couldn't communicate clearly myself,
Exactly.
and that reflected in the way I was talking to like locals, to other students, and professors and teachers. Probably for the first month during my studies, I couldn't actually ask any questions because on top of being a little bit shy, I just couldn't say those questions
So
the right way.
you were pretty much about like Chinese, because Chinese are usually very quiet in the class. They don't say
Right.
much, even though
Yep.
they are smart, but they don't say much. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, I can totally agree with you. Like, friend of mine told me a story also, like it was pretty much the same like me, but it was a long time ago. He came to Australia, and like, he was staying with the family, Australian family, and he came there, knock on their door, they opened, and they said like, "Hey mate, how are ya?" And he was like looking at them, because they're also coming from Slovakia, from Europe, and he was like looking like, "No, I'm not from Hawaii." So the
Uh,
language barrier, like Aussies, the
Uh,
accent, everything, it's a
Absolutely.
challenge. It's a challenge,
It's a challenge, and you gotta get used to it. I
Exactly.
remember my first cultural Australian experience when I went to a barbecue, and well, I was just talking to like one of the like friends, and I told him a story. I'm not actually sure what it was, but in the end, he said, "Fair income, mate." And as a person who never actually studied Australian slang, I just couldn't comprehend what he was actually saying, and what language was that.
Yeah, it can be very challenging. Can be very challenging
Yeah.
sometimes. So I need to
Mhm.
adjust to these things. That's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, on the other hand, we should be open, like
Hmm.
honest with people. Like, not, they don't have to be scared of this. It's just like new thing. I'm sure there are different dialects when you travel across the Russia, right? You guys have a huge country, so I'm
That's
sure
right.
people maybe in Moscow speak different than people in Novosibirsk, or maybe just a little bit like. So
Hmm.
let's say if I would be studying Russian and
Hmm.
going through the basically whole country, I would say it would be the same, right, for me, to
That's
understand.
that's totally right. Yeah, and I would say that immersing yourself in language would be a trick that you could play anytime. And
Right.
I'm not sure what you did when you did your studies, but what I did, I actually stopped communicating in Russian for like probably half a year,
Oh, good for you.
to the best extent possible. I just well, I did talk to my parents, I did talk to my relatives, and sometimes friends, but most of the times I made sure that I surrounded myself with people who communicate solely in English. They could have been locals and students from other countries, but I made sure that, well, I wasn't. I didn't have the temptation to speak Russian.
That's good.
Uh,
That's really good what you're saying. Yeah, pretty much the same with me. Like, I communicated
mhm,
with, still with friends or family in my native language. My
mhm,
parents don't even speak English, right? But yeah, I mean, the classes and everything. Like, even sometimes with the classmates in the library, let's say, even sometimes we just kept stick to the English, which is better. So definitely,
mhm,
that's good. That's good. What you, and maybe important thing to mention over here, that people should not be looking for like Russian communities, or this kind of thing. I'm not saying it's bad. Of course, you need to have some
mhm,
friends. Even in Australia, it's good to be have your mates from home. But yeah, you should be pretty much surrounded by international, because that's how you pick up the language the
mhm.
most quick way, I would say. Yeah.
That's right.
Cool.
That's right. Yeah,
Cool.
and I really enjoyed what you said about the difference between the education systems. As a lot of people, when they come to Australia, or any other country, to be honest, from Russia or Ukraine or Slovakia, they tend to think that well, the load, the study load that they have, is actually less than in our respective countries. Because when you go to the university, for example, in Ukraine or Russia, you would have like a list of subjects that you would have to complete
That's right.
by the end of semester. And when you go to Australia, it's only like from 3 to 5 subjects,
Exactly.
and you get surprised why is it not as many. But as you start studying, you kind of get why it is like that. Those subjects are very comprehensive in the first place, but on top of that, as you've said, they have that practical component. They
Exactly.
are made for the real world practice, not just well, practicing theory. And I've recently heard about the concept the way you could the theory and practice gap. Like, for example, you could read about surfing like 10,000 books, but unless you try once
Yeah,
to
that's
stand
right.
on the board, you will not be able to do that.
It's
So
pretty difficult though. Yeah, that's correct.
so you might as well just obviously you still need to have some theoretical knowledge, but you still have to try. You're gonna fall a couple of times, and it's fine because that's the part of the learning process. But you still gotta do both things. You can't just merely uh, dissolve yourself in books
Exactly.
and then just hope that something is gonna happen.
And also interesting subjects sometimes you have at the university abroad, whether it's Australia or some other English speaking countries. Like when I get to my uni, I was like, we had the subjects like critical thinking. I was like, what the
Mhm.
heck is that? Like critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
actually it's really, really good because especially these days when you everyone's got social media like Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I think in Russia it's like also like what is the other thing? Contacti, right? That's what maybe was working. So sometimes when you scroll, even your friends, and you see what people are sharing, and you just like you really sometimes like, okay, I'm not saying everyone, but like sometimes you just think like people, you don't think about it. Like sometimes people reshare everything, not even thinking about whether it's true, what's the source,
Mhm.
and these kind of things like you are able to pick up at the universities abroad, like critical thinking. They try to teach you how to think critically, how to check the sources,
Mhm.
whether like that's something what is maybe not that common here in Europe, I would say, that much, okay, like not
Sure.
saying at all, but that much,
Mm. Mm. I agree with you. I mean, questioning everything
Yeah,
is actually the road to progress because all of the inventions that were made by, well, humankind were made merely from the questioning what was right or not right about something.
exactly.
So, and that comes from critical thinking, and
Yeah.
that's a very good point.
Although to be kind of like a fair enough, like to protect our region as well, because that's where we come from, right? I
Mhm.
would say if we had compare, like let's say Australia, I've been working this business for a while, so
Mhm.
let's say like elementary education,
Mhm.
I would say it's still better here in Europe or Russia
Mhm.
compared to Australia, US,
Mhm.
because I could see that even like some of my subjects like math and or algebra, like at the
Mhm.
university, I was like looking at like we had these things in high school, right? And so
Right. Yeah.
something I could see like like the elementary, the kids, they maybe like the system is much better here, but then the university, I would say it's better like abroad, because like we said, they teach you
Mhm.
to practice to learn practical things, not just to memorize, because
Mhm.
that's what you're gonna need in your life, right? Once you
Mhm.
once you get a real job, you should be able to think, make decisions, okay,
Mhm.
like look for the things, to know where to find things, how to sort out. So all these things basically helps you during the university abroad in Australia, for example, to prepare, because there's a lot of case studies, and things like that. So
Mhm.
that's something I would say is better abroad still,
Totally agree with you. Yeah, well, doing your well high school well, actually, your secondary school studies in Europe is typically what I see is more beneficial for the the students that we talk to.
Exactly.
As you're right, it has a very good foundation and the subjects that they actually study, they. They don't provide as much freedom, but while at the same time they teach them those essential skills for them to progress further when they move to the university overseas. And
Exactly.
this is why they excel so much, because they kind of get the best from the both worlds. They get those essential skills that you kind of have to grind through,
Yeah.
but then once they get to Australia, for example, they get enough freedom to express themselves, and this is where the magic pretty much happens.
Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. And
Mhm.
also, like, yeah, well, one of the things you mentioned, like, you came there and you were pretty much quiet, like, for the
Mm.
first 6 months, maybe, of your studies.
Yep.
So that's another thing. Like, maybe it was, yeah, language barrier, let's be honest.
Hmm.
But also, maybe the education system you were used to, right? Like, maybe you were not
Hmm.
encouraged in your class in high school, let's say back home, to express yourself that much, share things. Because that's sometimes what happens. I'm not saying everywhere, but sometimes it happens here with our education system, like you come for a class, you listen to the professor, teacher, take some notes, that's it, you know, and you take the exams, right? You are not that much involved sometimes, you know, like, but the Western thing, you know, education system or whatever, even like Australians, is like about involving students in things. Like sometimes you have feeling the lecturer or professor is on the same level with the students. He doesn't play a big hero in a class like I'm someone and you just, you know, kids. No, sometimes they really involve people. They want to hear their opinion. They don't show them like I'm the professor, I'm the leading the class and you're just student, okay? No, that's what is really different, I would say, in abroad, and that's what I like, you know, about it, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. That's amazing. Well, since we started talking about what we actually kind of enjoyed about studying overseas and in Australia per se, was there something that you actually didn't enjoy?
Well, definitely it's about like pricing or tuition fees and this kind of, and not just tuition fees, but the cost of the life abroad. You know, let's be honest. Yes, universities are great, education is good, but simply you need to have this money. So unless you have solid foundation, like, you know, from home, from parents, or you just need to work hard. It's like my professor at the university used to say, there is no such a thing like a free lunch in the world. So, so yeah, I mean, everything is great, but you need to definitely sacrifice. You need to sacrifice your time, effort, you know, like you need to put something into it. And that's what maybe students might perceive a different way in Europe or Russia, because we get free education and it's good education. I mean, we do pay at some private schools here. I'm sure you guys in Russia as well, but come on, compare it to the tuition fees in Australia, like it's a peanuts, right? So so that's definitely something I don't want to say I didn't like, but yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't like it, because like even now I'm traveling back and forth between Australia and Europe, and let's be honest, the prices of accommodation, food, and basically everything what you need to survive, let's say in Sydney, is going crazy up, you know. So that's sometimes what I don't like about these things. Or let's say, okay, I'm already like a little bit more mature, so I got a daughter. So some of my mates or good friends living in Australia, I know like how much they pay for, let's say, kindergarten for their kids. Like it's about $100 per day. And that doesn't even include the food, which if you compare here in Europe, you get it for free or just like, you know, small money. So some of the things are still better here. I would say it's not that much about money. So this is something what maybe I don't like. But overall, like once you get a good job, once you're not lazy, once you try, you can pretty much settle down, get a good job, get a you know get a good life. You know, let's be honest, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Well,
maybe pricing.
pricing, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but pricing is definitely a challenge, especially if you're coming from a different country where
Right.
everything is completely different. And you mentioned it correctly, that the cost of actually putting your children into kindergarten in Australia is pretty high.
It is.
I agree with that. It's totally a challenge. But to actually negate that a little bit, I would say that if you do get a job in Australia, you could cover those
Exactly.
things.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
A lot of people, they don't tend to put this into account that once you get a job, even the most simple one in Australia, it pays pretty well. I mean, in comparison to what we earn in here,
Yes.
the minimum wage covers most of the things. Yeah, of course, it's not going to be like the minimum wage wouldn't give you a life of luxury and cruising on the boat every single day, but
Yeah. You can surf every single day. That's
yeah, you
kind
could
of
surf.
cheap.
It's cheap. Yeah, yeah. Ocean is free.
That's right. That's right.
The beach is nice, and yeah, that's good.
No. Let's be. Yeah, you're right. Maybe I didn't express myself very well. Yeah, once you get a solid job or even average job in Australia, like you said, you can cover those things. Yes, that's you. You pretty much live a decent life over there. You're not missing anything, you know. But yeah, I mean, like some of the things I would say are still better here in Europe. I would say it's not that much about the money, even though like, you know, things are getting more expensive in Europe as well, and I'm sure in Russia as well every year. But yeah, some of the things are still better here. But yeah, on the other hand, The salaries, look, I think we'll mention it later, right? But people starting somewhere at $65,000 a year, so that's pretty much covers everything for you very,
It
very
does.
easily.
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah, especially if you, well, if you're living like on a budget, you could easily live on like $20,000 a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, maybe not in Sydney, in the city center, but in many parts of Australia, you could easily do that and have a very comfortable life.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. It depends what you want. Like if someone is
Mm.
a big party man, party girl, well, prepare your wallet because you're gonna spend a lot. Like
Mm.
just single pack of cigarettes, right? In Australia,
Mm.
35, $40, $40.
Mm.
So it's
Oh, so,
expensive. Or drinking,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, that's something.
But
But
that promotes a healthy lifestyle, which on the other hand is actually pretty good. You extend your lifespan.
exactly, exactly. I totally agree with you. I would put the same pricing on smoking here in Europe, actually,
Yeah.
if I would be able to. That's correct. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, cool, cool. So, well, yeah, I agree that pricing could be a bit of a challenge, and we actually had a question about, well, how much money should one have to relocate to Australia for study, and maybe you could comment on that
All
yourself.
right. Well, like you mentioned,
Mhm,
okay, if we're talking about just living cost,
mhm,
like you said, if you are like average, you're not looking for
mhm,
luxury things, you can live
mhm,
out of $20,000, $30,000 per year,
mhm,
which one of the great things about Australia, I don't know who was the person who asked this question, but one of the
mhm,
great things about Australia that
mhm,
maybe it's good to have money for first two, three
mhm,
months just to settle down, but then you
mhm,
get a part-time job and you cover the cost of the living easily.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
even if you live in Sydney, you live in Adelaide, Brisbane, whatever. Like
mhm,
if people are not lazy, they get a part-time job in hospitality field, many times like cafe restaurants, or even like grocery stores, whatever,
mhm,
airports. So as soon as you keep working, you cover cost of the living. Okay, so we don't even have to discuss how much money you need for just to survive because you
mhm,
can earn and support yourself. That's beauty about Australia. It's very student friendly in this case. For the tuition fees, well, it depends. If you go to state schools, the top
mhm,
ones, you're gonna be charged like 30, 40, $50,000 a year. And
mhm,
like if you do bachelor, it's like 3 years, right? So
mhm,
a lot of money. We as a private university tournaments, we can
mhm,
get some very fair enough pricing for European students, including Russian students,
mhm,
as soon as they get scholarships. So
mhm,
we're talking about what roughly 18, $20,000 per year, Australian dollars, but it can be even a little bit less sometimes. So it's kind of like half price of the big unis like UTS,
mhm,
University of Melbourne, etc. So and still you get high quality education. So
mhm. Totally, totally. Well, and this applies to pretty much every like bit of higher education in Australia that it's so heavily. I wouldn't say controlled by the government, but it's so heavily supported by the government that pretty much any place you go to is actually a good place to get your degree
yeah.
in.
That's
So
right.
it really is all about what are your or what are you trying to look for, and maybe you're chasing after the rankings of the university, and if you are, then you would probably have to pay more for that.
That's
But
right.
but if you are okay with the not being at the like best of the best universities, well, based on some rankings, which is not always very objective. It could be pretty subjective.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, sometimes like you did
Mhm,
mention very good point, Ali, that
mhm,
it's about what you want, but it's not
mhm,
doesn't mean like if you go to the best or highly ranked school,
mhm,
you're gonna become like a
mhm,
someone and earn $1 million a year. I
mhm,
know people who graduated from University of Sydney, it's like one of the big
mhm,
best ones, and
mhm,
I don't want to say they're doing bad in their life, but
mhm,
nothing like I don't see the difference from someone who maybe graduates from our university. Okay,
mhm,
so it's sometimes it's not about just rankings, like
mhm,
but yeah, definitely maybe if you got
mhm,
the money and there's like special field you want to go, so
mhm,
state schools might be good, but
mhm,
you need to be prepared to pay for it. But at the same time, like you did mention, which was really really good point, that Every single university, there's not many of them in Australia, like we talk about 20 to 30 universities roughly. So every single of them offers high quality education, and they actually must. Let's be honest, you pay for it, right? So it's
Of
not
course,
it's
of
not
course,
free.
yeah.
So they need to provide high quality. So that's something what you can kind of like really, it's kind of like guaranteed, we can say,
Totally. Yeah, I agree. I don't think Australian education sector even it would exist if it didn't have
Correct.
the quality that it provided to students.
Yeah, that's correct. That's totally right.
Yeah. So, oh well, and it's also very good that you mentioned that well, there are private and there are government universities in Australia. Can you elaborate on that? Is there any difference in terms of the quality of the degrees or anything? Because in Russia, there's a predisposition that well, if you go to a state university, then it's of higher quality than the private university. But is it like in Australia or not really?
I wouldn't say so. Definitely, state universities, the big one like like
Mm-hmm.
University of Melbourne, Sydney, etc. Like ranking wise, they're better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the name of the university, they put also a lot of money into research and these kind of things. So that's definitely one of the kind of like good things about it. It's also not that easy to get over there.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't say if you go to private university in Australia that is bad level. No, it's actually not considered this way. Actually, private university, including us,
Mm-hmm.
can be more flexible towards students. For
Mm-hmm.
example, it's funny thing. I used to work for some state university before as well, before I joined Torrance.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like they started the campuses. They started with 3 intakes, and some of the state universities were really kind of like pissed or angry because of that. Because in general they have two intakes in Australia because you got semester systems, but those private ones start to be more flexible. Okay, you have September intake. If you miss it, you have February, and you can still also have, let's say, June intake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like more flexible for students because sometimes like you don't want to wait for the whole year to jump into the university. Maybe you want to start earlier, as soon as possible. So the private ones were kind of like more flexible in these things, and I know that some of the state universities were like they try to follow it as well. So it's actually like they kind of like competing with each other, which is good for us. So I think like both of them are good, but private ones are maybe more flexible because like they realize it's all about like paying. State schools, they got funds from government, so maybe they are not that open-minded to change things. You simply come and follow, or just if you don't like it, they're outdoors, right?
That's
So
true. That's true. That's true.
that's about it. So
Yeah.
but anyway, I would say like both of them, like everything's got some advantages, disadvantages. Also, one of the good things about private schools, actually, maybe you can compare because at the private schools, usually you study in a smaller classes. So Torrance University, Australia, my university, we keep classes about 25 students per lecture or per professor, okay? Which sometimes doesn't happen in the big state schools. If you go to University of Melbourne, Sydney, and these kind of like big giants ones, you might end up with a lecture hall with 200 students. So, so the more personal approach is definitely at the private school. Sometimes I would say, but like I said, yes, if you're looking for top professors with some PhD profiles, everything, I guess it's gonna be the state schools. So
that's right.
So that's about it, I would say. To be fair enough.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I would. I also had a just as I started working in international education, I had this thing that really like the most common difference between state universities and private ones, if you compare them to Russian universities, is the way that they get their funding. And you've already kind of mentioned that, and that states schools, they get funding from the government. They do get some funding from private companies, but not that much, and this is why they're not as flexible. But as private institutions, they tend to specifically in Australia. We're not talking in other countries because it's different in every single country.
Right.
Well, private universities, they would typically get funding from companies, which are actually employers of the students who are graduating from those degrees, which means that they're invested in the institutions that provide them good quality people and professionals who will end up going and working for them or creating something on their own. So it does really say that if you do go to a private school in Australia, it could be actually more beneficial to you because the private schools would have better connections with the industry. They would have uh, better quality professionals who actually worked in the industry. They're not
Exactly.
theorizing, they're actually
Exactly.
teaching practical skills. And that's amazing. And what not so many people realize, we'll go to US for a second, that well, Harvard and most of Ivy League universities, they're actually private. They're not
Yeah,
state.
that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
And yeah, most of the funds that they get, obviously they get tuition payments from students, but the funding that they get to will keep their operations is actually from the companies and graduates who've graduated from
Yeah,
those
from
universities.
alumni. That's correct.
Yeah, and they just believe in this, in the system and the educational institutions so much that they would contribute once they will build something on their own. And this is the case in Australia as well. You have a lot of companies who are invested in educational institutions because they believe that it will propel the economy and their company further. Uh,
That's really good point what you
mm,
mentioned, and still, if we compare Europe continent maybe and Australia or US over here,
mm,
this is not what is happening in Europe. Like,
mm,
I've never, okay, maybe fair enough, but I didn't hear that many cases like someone would graduate in Europe from university and then like run successful business and donate some money to university, right? It's not that common, like at
absolutely.
least I didn't hear such a cases too much, but abroad it's happening, yeah, because once they believe in this whole thing, like you mentioned, like to support and build community, good quality, so
Mhm.
that's fair enough, yeah.
That's awesome. And one of the most commonly asked questions that we get is actually scholarships, because well, we already mentioned that no, well, education is paid for in
It is.
Australia.
Mhm.
No, can you share your insight on the scholarships that are available
Mhm.
in Australia?
So actually, Russian students and European students as well, the whole
Mm,
continent, like I take care
mhm,
of, are the most lucky ones,
mm,
including with the LATAM students, Latin America,
mhm,
because they always get the best scholarships in Australia from, I would say,
mhm,
from all universities.
mm,
Chinese subcontinent students don't get much, to be
mm,
honest, but
mhm,
Europeans are preferred. Everyone wants to have students from Russia, let's say
mhm,
Germany or
mhm,
Czech Republic, Slovakia. Okay, so
mhm,
they really grant, like we even grant big scholarships at Torrance University.
mhm,
Of course, it depends on what program or faculty you're applying to. So we have several structures.
mhm,
Sometimes you can get 15%, sometimes it goes to 30 or 35%, which is already like a lot of money. We talk about like
mhm,
8, 10, or $9,000 or $10,000 almost off from the tuition fees, like
mhm,
discount, we can say.
mhm,
So yeah, there are a bunch of scholarships. So it depends on the faculty program and also depends on the profile of the students.
mhm,
For some programs, it's actually for Europeans, including Russian students, it's not that challenging to get scholarship. You just need to meet entry requirements. It
mhm,
means you are accepted by university. Okay, you still
mhm,
need to be accepted, of course. That's kind of like, but you get a scholarship. For some of the faculties or programs, you have to go through some interviews as well, or like you need to, let's say, provide some portfolio. So again, it depends. But in general, I would say it's not any rocket science for Europeans to get scholarship. Once you really want, you apply, you can get it. So,
mhm,
and like I said, sometimes it's like $8,000-$10,000 off from the tuition fees, which makes the whole degree cheaper. And good thing about it, at least not sure about the other universities, but at Torrance University, Australia, I work for, we grant the scholarship for the whole duration of your studies. So if students come for a bachelor degree is 3 years in Australia. I know in Russia it's 4 years, right? If I'm
Yes,
not
that's
mistaken.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So in Australia it's a little bit shorter. If you qualify for scholarship, if you're granted scholarship, it basically applies to whole duration. So all 3 years, every single year you get scholarship, which is good, you know. If you go and enroll into a master degree, you get it for 2 years, because master is 2 years in Australia. So that's good about us, that we, you know, once you qualify for it, you get it for the whole duration of your study. So helps you a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes during those 3 years can be like 20 or even $30,000, you know, less or cheaper, you know. So that's something, yeah, which is good.
Yeah, that's amazing. But well, you mentioned that most of the scholarships are pretty much well, a discount to the course. So that means, is it actually possible to get a full scholarship, for example, in some cases?
Okay, I don't. Well, not sure, not at our university. I don't think like the other ones. I don't know. You share your experience, unless you're applying to some PhD program and you are like really good scientist coming from Russia with a tremendous experience. Something, yes, you might get some, you know, like very big ones are real free, but there's like what 1% of overall student numbers. So in general, there's like no full scholarships. To be honest. And the reason might be, let's be honest, the reason might be simple. It's education over there, it's a business as well. Okay, so why would I give you something for free, you know, like unless you coming and bringing some kind of, like I said, tremendous experience to my university. You're gonna you know, devote to some research which is gonna
Yep.
help me to boost my rankings as you know. Yes, in this case, yeah, I can give you studies for free, but otherwise now there's no such a thing like a free lunch. So no full scholarships. But don't worry. I mean, like once Europeans get scholarships, it is affordable, because the tuition fees you guys pay, or Russian students pay, is not like you pay upfront for 3 years or even
That's
like
right.
1 year, or you don't even pay for the whole year. You always pay for the subjects. Like Vitaly, you did mention at the beginning, like you taking 3-4 subjects per trimester. So that's what you pay for. So if the overall tuition is, let's say, $20,000, you divide it by 8 subjects, okay? Because 8 subjects, that's the minimum required you need to pass during the year. You divide it by 8 and then basically multiply by number of subjects you're taking. So let's say, I don't know, like just get my calculator here. So let's say if you do $20,000 as a tuition fees, you divide it by 8, which means it's going to be, let's say, $2,500 per subject. So if you start with 3 subjects, you multiply by 3 and you start with $7,500 investment and you study. So you have kind of installments, which makes it affordable for you. So you don't need to, you know, invest all the money up front. So, and the other thing, well, good thing about it, which is funny to say good thing to pay for education, but yeah, there is one good thing about it. Once you pay for it, let's say from your own pocket or from your parents, you know, money, you're gonna appreciate it much more, and you're gonna study and work hard in this university, because it's not free, right? You pay for it. So this is something maybe what you know, like in Europe, many times happen. Kids, you know, they have canceled classes, and it was like, yeah, I can go home, right? Well, in abroad, once you pay for it, you don't want to have canceled classes or something. You want to get the lecture, you want to meet with the professor, discuss things, because you're learning stuff, you're paying for it, and it's like, you know. So that's maybe the difference, that you're gonna appreciate it much more, the education,
Totally.
and maybe if it's, you know, if it's free of charge, you know, maybe you don't even realize it sometimes. So yeah,
I
that's
totally agree with you. I
that's it.
totally agree with you. Yeah, I could well, maybe a lot of people would have this experience, but even whenever I study different courses online, because well, I tend to go through different things at a time, and whenever I apply for a free course, I would be less inclined to actually take it. I would be I would keep postponing my studies in there, and keep on telling myself, well, it's free, and once I have free time, then I'm gonna study for it. But if I pay for a course, no, I would be like, well, I paid for this course. I've spent time, my own time, to earn this amount of money, to spend this money on this course. So I will make sure that
Great, good point.
I study for this course, and it's not only a mental trick that you play. It's also an investment of some kind. And
Exactly.
in Australia, what I realized, it's actually a very good investment, even though studies could sound pretty expensive sometimes. And I agree, it's not the amount of money that you would have to invest is a decent amount. Um, it is still an investment, because once you get into Australia, you could start working, and it's your choice to either work or not work. But if you want to get a pay back to that investment, you could start working day one. Just get a well, part-time job. Waiting, or probably working in the shop or anywhere, getting a minimum wage, and you will be able to earn up to
Exactly.
$20,000 per year. And
Exactly.
this is what I did, like how many years ago? That was it was 10 years ago already.
All right.
So yeah, I started working. I Even though I didn't speak English that well, I was still able to work well, in the store, in the
Yeah,
coffee shop, and it's quite easy. You learn the language along the way, actually, and at the same time you pay your bills.
exactly.
And
It's kind of like a lesson for your life because once we grow
absolutely.
up, right, you have families, etc. You're
Mhm,
gonna be basically
mhm,
earning money to pay bills, to take care of
mhm,
your household, let's say. So it's kind of
mhm,
like good training, we can say.
mhm,
Just but still, just taking care of yourself, just trying to survive. So it's
mhm.
not that you know scary, I would say. But yeah, good point.
That's right. Well, I'm actually very grateful to my parents, because they've covered the tuition expenses
Yeah,
and living expenses in Australia. But I really did my best to actually get in that investment back, and as fast as possible. And once I started working during my studies, and once I actually completed my studies, I started working in a full-time job. I was able to get that investment back within like a year and a half,
exactly. This is
which
really, really important what you're saying because
Mhm,
sometimes European students ask me also like, okay,
mhm,
since I can work in Australia,
mhm,
am I going to be able to cover the cost of the studies as well, like to pay
mhm,
for my, like
mhm,
living and also university? So the answer to this question, to be honest, is no. Or actually, okay,
mhm.
maybe
You're
10%
right.
people, 10 to
Mhm,
10% people can manage because let's say if they are
mhm,
already experienced in something, let's say IT or whatever, they get a good jobs as a
mhm,
part-timers in Australia. Yeah, you can earn even for university, but maybe that's 10% or even less. The rest now it's not gonna be you're not gonna be able to do it because it's first of all it's expensive. Second thing is university, so
mhm,
you need to be involved in classes, projects, everything. So it's not like you're gonna be able to work every day to like 10 hours or something. You need to really devote your time to studies.
mhm,
So but good point what you mentioned is that once you graduate it will
mhm,
pay off to you very quickly.
mhm,
You can pay it back to your parents, family,
mhm,
someone, or if you take a
mhm,
loan or something, because the Australian salaries you're gonna earn, like I
mhm,
said, you're gonna be starting salary $65,000.
mhm,
If you have experience, you speak English, you speak Russian language, it's good. So you can be used for many companies because that's perfect.
mhm.
Uh, well, you can start 70, $80,000, and that's basically you get just those 2 3 years, post study work visa, and all the investment is gonna be back to you like this. I would say so.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's
That's
correct.
right. Yeah, let's actually talk about post-study work visa, because that's important.
It is. It is. Tell
Yeah,
me about it.
yeah, yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, what kind of benefits students actually get upon their graduation in Australia? Is it actually possible to continue living and working in Australia, or do you have to pack your bags and go back?
Like backpacker. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yes, one of the most livable things about Australia, like
Mhm,
in terms of like for international students, is post-study work rights or 45
mhm,
sub plus visa, as we if you should classify it.
mhm,
Yes, so every single international student, including Russian students, once you graduate from University of Australia, okay, but must be university, so bachelor, master, or PhD studies, okay, not English school, not like vocational studies, but university degree. As soon as you graduate, you basically become eligible for post-study work rights. So you apply, and pretty much everyone get it. So you can get post-study work rights 2 or up to 3 years. It depends where you study.
mhm,
So if you're doing your university studies in big cities like Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, or I don't know, like what else, you're gonna get 2 years post-study work rights. If you study in so-called regional cities, which are a little bit smaller ones, so it can be Perth, Gold Coast, or it can be Adelaide, okay, you can get 1 more year on the top, okay, because it's the people might be asking why. Well, the idea behind this is very simple. Government wants people to spread across the country. They don't want everyone just to end up in Sydney or Melbourne, because then the cities are crowded, right? Sydney and Melbourne, there are over 5 million people already, so kind of like big cities. Well, okay, compared to Moscow, it's still small, but but anyway, it's over. But the Sydney is actually huge. Like you can be driving 1 hour and you're still within the city. It's like spread across like 100 kilometers almost. So it's like they're growing very fast, but they want to develop other regions. So they said, like, if you're gonna go to Adelaide or Perth and you invest in your studies over there, you work over there these 2 years, you're gonna get 1 more year on top. So, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Depends what you want. 2 or 3 years, you always get it. And actually, that's the time when you're not only gonna earn all the money pretty much always back what you invested or what your parents maybe invested into your education. You're gonna earn it back. So you got it. The investment is paid within 2 years. But also, it's not just about the money. It's about like you proceed with your career in Australia. So you studied something and you can start, working in that field as well. And this is the most amazing thing, I would say, also like at Torrens University, because we're helping students to get connected with many companies. So they succeed, and they succeed in a way like if they study, let's say, business, they're going to end up in a business field. If they study design, software engineering, they're going to end up jobs in this field. And this is the most important thing, I would say, because then they do what they like, or as we say, like, do what you love. Okay, and that's the best thing. Not even the money. Sometimes people think about money. Yeah, well, you can be earning millions of dollars, but if you're doing something you hate, come on, it's just matter of the time. Yeah, it's just matter of the time you're gonna leave it, because all right, as they say, you can't buy happiness with the money. So it's about like getting a job and do what you like, proceed with design, whatever, like sports management and these kind of like fields. So that's what is amazing, that you can start your career in Australia and gets you the opportunity to earn salaries, live a good life, get connected on a global scale with the companies. Maybe you can move back to Europe or somewhere else in Asia part of the world. These are the good opportunities. Yes, definitely.
That's awesome. That is definitely great. And you mentioned that, Torrens actually gets students connected with the industry, and I hear that a lot. But how do you guys do it?
There is this beautiful word in Russian, stajirovka.
Stajirovka.
Yeah, that's right. So look, we as a Torrens University, we are a private university, and like that's what I can tell. What differentiates us from other ones, from big unis, state unis, is that we try to be really practically focused. So we try to be connected with the industry. So currently they say we have 3,600, well, almost 4,000 connections with the businesses or within Australia. So it means we placing students or the part of the bachelor, for example, degree is also industry placement or job placement or stajirovka, we can say. Okay, so students actually, they study something, and at the end of their studies, well, it depends what you do. Sometimes it's also in the first year, but usually at the end of your studies in your last trimester, we're going to place you or connect you with a real company, and you're going to practice what you've been studying. And this is amazing, because then you graduate from university having a diploma, degree, and also having at least some experience. Okay, so that's a good thing about it. And well, many times if people work hard or try to prove themselves during this internship period, they might be offered jobs, from these companies right away. That's cool about it. So that's how we do it.
That's amazing. Well, I could definitely say that not so many universities actually do the same things you guys do. And judging from my own experience at Macquarie, which is a good university,
It is very, very good.
it's a state university, but I kind of lacked that practical component, like an actual internship. And from what I hear, they actually have this component embedded these days. But
Cool.
back when I was back when I was in at the university, they didn't really have it. And what you're talking about is amazing, because this is what this is what what's education is all about. You study not to be just good at studying. You study because you want to be good at your job, and to be good at your job, you need connections within the industry, and you need
Exactly.
those practical skills. And well, you definitely win so much from just having that practical and component
And
embedded in the
it is
course.
also like it is also like your first job
Mhm,
interview, like, or experience, because
mhm,
don't get me wrong, it doesn't work this way. Like, say if
mhm,
you studying business with us, that at the end of your studies we're going to put you in a company and you get the job right away. No, we
mhm,
get you connected with these companies, we help you to prepare CV and everything for the interview, and then we arrange 2 3 interviews for you, and you need
mhm,
to still come and prove yourself there. But
mhm,
usually people get the jobs, so
mhm,
it's kind of like a first experience as well, like a real experience for you,
mhm,
that you
mhm,
still need to qualify for this. But like I said, like, so far I never had the case that someone will be coming back to me like I didn't get my
mhm,
internship now. But
mhm,
it's still like you need to visit our career center, which is at the
mhm,
university, and they will
mhm,
basically connect you with those companies we got and we keep
mhm,
working with. So
mhm.
that's a good point.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We actually have a question from Nadine, and she's asking, is it possible to work in Australia, or is it, well, if you have completed your studies in Ukraine, and is it obligatory to have a degree from Australian university to do so? Mm,
Well, the question is, I don't say tricky, but like,
Tricky.
look,
Mm,
education is one of the ways how to, because
mm,
if
mm,
someone wants to just come to Australia and work, it's almost
mm,
mission impossible. Yeah, there
mhm,
are some skilled visas and the other visas,
mhm,
but that's
mhm,
something you need to meet certain
mhm,
requirements, and there's not many
mhm,
spots. So
mhm,
usually it's very difficult to get some kind of like
mhm,
job visa for Australia.
mhm,
So if we're talking about like regular student, like
mhm,
now it's the only way is basically to apply to higher education. So maybe to
mhm,
boost your education even more, like if
mhm,
you done the degree back in Ukraine, I
mhm,
think you mentioned.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's still possible to top it up with, let's say, another master or PhD over there, and
of
that's
course.
what's gonna open you the door to stay in the country and proceed with your
Mhm.
career or work as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I totally agree with you on that, because the it is possible to get a visa to just work in Australia, but if you take the education pathway, it's more streamlined, because
Exactly.
you kind of have the point where you do this, you do that, and you do that, and you'll get that. But in the end, uh, but with the working visa, it's just like a lottery, pretty
It is.
much.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It's almost mission impossible.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Sometimes. So
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah.
So that's yeah, that's really important to note.
Exactly.
Yeah, and well, it's great that no, we've actually covered this aspect of boosting your chances of finding a job. And you definitely need, if you are able to get into a course where you can get that practical experience during your studies, you should definitely go for it, because it would make it so much easier for you to do things once you graduate, because you will at least have enough hours of work as an experience to actually claim yourself as professional. And it's easier for you to communicate during the interviews. It's easier for you to actually look for a job
Hmm.
upon completion of studies, because you know where to look.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's right. And oh, we've got another question from D. They're asking, do Australian universities provide appointments between alumni and the recruiters? If it's not a secret, did you avoid the way to serve, or you got into an army? Oh, so those are two questions. So let's start with the first one.
Yeah, I mean, they
Mm,
do with alumni as well. Once
mm,
you basically, during the studies, like we mentioned, it's
mm,
already, you're not alumni yet, but let's say you're
mm,
graduating from university, so they are, I don't know what about the other ones, but at
mm,
Torrance University, we do have a career center, like people who will connect you with the potential employers. So yes,
mm,
definitely, it's like, nothing is guaranteed though. Okay,
mm,
don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean like you come to study with us and you're gonna get job 100%. No, you still need to prove yourself and
mm,
apply, etc. But yeah, you definitely get some connections, recommendation. That's
mm,
what we do. That's what is the career center about. So that's the answer to the first question. And the second one was what?
It's about serving in the army.
No, I didn't do it anymore. Yeah, it was mandatory in my country as well, like anywhere I would say. But I think I was born '86, so basically I think for those guys they already canceled. So yeah, I think 1 or 2 years before they cancel it. So it was like a professional army. So if you want to join it, you can, but it's about like being getting paid for it. But that's not what I wanted. So.
Makes sense. Well, I didn't serve in the army myself, but no, what happened to me is actually I was 17 when I left Ukraine, and I went to Australia for my studies, and I pretty much spent most of my time in Australia, which means that I simply couldn't serve in the army, and studying abroad actually. Well, you don't avoid the army by studying abroad, but by not being in the country where you were born, you can't serve in there because you're just simply in the other place. That's it.
That's correct. That's correct.
And that's what happened to me.
Cool.
Let's get to the fun bit. Let's talk about your favorite places in Australia to live in, and because you've traveled around Australia.
Yeah, I did.
Where you've been to?
I didn't do all states yet. Still, like I'm missing Northern Territory, South Australia. But look, the places I've been through, I really like. Still my favorite is Sydney. I'll be honest with you guys, but it's not just because of the opera house and these kind of things with people. No, I don't care about these things too much. But the reason I like Sydney is it's like a mixture of everything. So in Sydney, you got, if you like commercial things, shoppings, malls, whatever, like restaurants, cafeterias, like fun, art, whatever. It's there because the city is about 5 million population. At the same time, the city, even though it's big, it's clean, it's safe. It's got very well infrastructure. You can get everywhere pretty, like, by buses, everything, like, is really, really good. That's what I like. And plus, you have also very nice, quiet places, in terms of like beach, etc. Like many, many cool ones where you can just relax, enjoy the life, have a quiet. So that's why, like, Sydney, it's still like one of the most livable cities in the world for me. I like it. But I travel a lot. So from the other places, let's say I'm just looking at my wall because there's a map of Australia. So Perth, for example, we don't have, for example, campus in Perth, but Western Australia is really lovely. I like Perth. That's actually, Perth was the first city I got when I traveled to Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was the first city. I like it. Although it's about 2.5 million, I guess, but it's more quiet. Okay. So my first impression, like, I got from Europe, there. It was a couple of years ago, and I landed, and then I got went to the hotel, took a shower, and was like, okay, I'm gonna get some beer and find some place, get a beer, and do some emails because I was already working at this time. And it was like it was like 7 p.m. in the evening. I was walking to the city. It's like pretty much everything closed, quiet. I was like, what the heck? Where are you people? Like 2 million people. Come on. Like, so it's really quiet, but it's really good for family life. But at the same time, the city is growing. So now it's a little bit slightly changed. But it's real Australia. It's like very warm, beautiful beaches out there. So it's like, I like it. Then what else? Melbourne. Okay. To be honest, my former boss was from Melbourne, so if he would hear me, like, he would probably kill me now. But I didn't like Melbourne that much. Melbourne, it's too European for me. It's like it reminds me of Europe a lot.
And also, you don't want Europe in Australia.
No, that's right. I mean, don't get me wrong. The city it's safe, it's clean, it's really sports city. Like, you can have like you can do a lot of things out there. It's beautiful. You get one of the best coffee out there as well. Restaurants. I had my first kangaroo steak in Melbourne, so that was something. In gastronomy and like hospitality is lovely. It's also about 5 million people, but in terms of like, if you're looking for Australia, beautiful beaches now, St Kilda, which is the most favorite beach in Melbourne, like, come on, like, compared to beaches in Perth or Sydney, Now, I mean, there are beautiful places as well around Melbourne, but you need to travel like 2 hours outside of the city. It's not within the city. Like in Sydney, you know you can. Vitaly, you can comment on this, right? In Sydney, you get to the beach in a couple of minutes to the
That's
nice
right.
ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Manly, Bondi, whatever,
Mm.
Coogee, you know.
Any beach you want.
Yeah, exactly. So Melbourne, I mean, but those people like, because not everyone is interested in like, you know, be on the beach and relaxing. Sometimes you just want to be in a nice city, clean city, with a good infrastructure, you know, friendly people. So Melbourne might be also good for you guys. For me, it was too European. And then Cairns, like Queensland, I traveled there. Cape Tribulation with my wife, etc. So Cairns, it's very small, so not much. If someone, especially from Saint Peter, Moscow, you'd be like, "What the heck is this?" Like, it's like it'll be too like, you know, it's like some of my friends, you know, like they say like, "Yeah, it's lovely, but there's nothing there." So I can't. Well, it depends what you're looking for, but yeah, definitely Sydney would be the best, probably, or you know, Western Australia is also beautiful. Yeah.
That's
What
great.
about you, mate? Did you travel?
I did. I didn't travel as much as you did. I guess I was actually the person who was like you judge a person by the way they live in the country. So I would say that I was completely Australian because I didn't travel to like as
Okay,
many
that's right.
places as you
That's
did.
right.
But yeah, I've been to Brisbane. I've been to Gold Coast.
Cool.
So I was living in Sydney. I also went to Cairns.
Perfect. So
And
did quite well, man. Like,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So what did you like the most? Which one?
Well, look, to be honest, every single place is good for specific kinds of people,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it really depends what you're looking for. So, for you mentioned really well that Sydney is a good combination of everything. It's a metropolis, but at the same time, it's very close to the beach. It's got lovely weather,
Yeah, it does. It does.
because Melbourne is amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
but you would have 4 seasons in one day sometimes.
Exactly. That's
And
correct.
there's actually a saying in Melbourne: if you don't like the weather in Melbourne, just wait 10 minutes.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, you can pretty much experience everything in one day, like
Yeah.
sunny, raining, windy.
Mm,
You know, it's like
mm,
yeah, that's correct. I
yeah.
forgot to mention this one. Yeah,
That's
that's
right, but
correct.
people still enjoy Melbourne, and I tend to compare. Well, if we're talking about Russia, for example, there's Saint Petersburg and Moscow. So I tend to compare Moscow to Sydney. Well, it doesn't have the ocean or the beaches, but it's a business center, and
Fewer people out
yes,
there.
yes. And Saint Petersburg is more cultural. It's more aesthetically pleasing, and Melbourne is like that. But at the same time, there's a trade-off: the weather.
Yeah, actually, this is really good comparison. Never thought about it this way, and you're totally right because you know I've been a couple times to your
Mm,
you know country and Moscow. Yeah,
mm,
something of what I really like. I mean, it's too big for me. I wouldn't probably want to
mm,
live there. But the great thing about Moscow, like
mm,
you can get everywhere by subway like very
mm,
quickly. I like the
mm,
infrastructure how it's done. Like
mm,
yeah, so it's pretty much like yeah, like
mm,
Sydney. That's a good
mm,
point. And also you got
mm,
like businesses, restaurants, so pretty much everything over there, you guys, right? So.
mm.
Yeah,
That
that's good comparison. Just a little bit more chilly in the winter time.
I would say that. I would say that. I'm yet to make a comparison in Ukraine. Well, the same comparison in Ukraine, because there's Kiev, which
Yeah,
is kind of like it's got good weather, it's got good food. So I think it's a combination of Melbourne and Sydney,
that's right.
all
That's right.
together.
And then if we want to let's say find in Ukraine something like Western
Mm.
Australia, there will be probably Odessa, which is really lovely and beautiful, lovely weather in summer,
That's
right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
that's right. So yeah, every place is beautiful. But right now, I'm actually attracted by Adelaide and Hobart in Tasmania. I've never been there myself, but I love South Australian wines, which is
Yeah, yeah. That's correct.
well, I could trade a lot of things for a good Shiraz.
That's good, good. So, I didn't know that you're a wine person. Perfect.
Well, I'm not that much of a wine person myself, but I do have like specific things that I love. So yeah, Australian Shiraz is very good. So yeah, Adelaide is an amazing place. It's even smaller than Perth, but at the same time, it's very in a way it's very close. It's very compact, and from what I've heard, and it feels like. A place that you would probably call home.
Yeah, it's very, again, it's for families. I would say really well, much cheaper lifestyle compared to Sydney or Melbourne. And what else? Well, it's it's not that big, and it's regional, which is kind of cherry on the top. If someone is looking for
Totally.
3 years post-study work rights, so. But I mean, just maybe to let people know, it's not about like you go to regional place like Adelaide, Perth, and you get automatically 3 years work rights. No, it works the way you need to proceed with your studies there. Then you qualify for 2 years post-study work, right? So you get 2 years post-study work rights, and you need to work in that kind of city or that area as well, and then you get one more on the top. Okay, so this is something what needs to be clarified, because some people think like, oh, okay, I'm gonna study in Adelaide, I'm gonna get 3 years, work permit, I can move anywhere. Now it's just like you need to really stick to that place. But like you did mention, it's really like place maybe you can call home. Yeah, it's not that busy. It's not that busy.
It's not that busy.
Yeah.
It's not that busy. So I would say that if you do enjoy a quiet lifestyle, but at the same time, just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's not full of everything.
Exactly.
It's very enjoyable in the weather and the ocean and everything, and simply the lifestyle. I would say that a lot of people choose Australia for their lifestyle. This is what attracts people the most about Australia. It's not like just the weather, just the beaches, just like the nature. It's everything all together. It's the way Australians live, and this is what I completely enjoyed about my stay and studies in Australia. That a lot of people say that Australians are lazy. I would say they're very optimized.
That's a good word.
Yeah, I'd say that, well, even though they don't work as much as we do, but they tend to get things done within that period of time that they do work. So they're actually a little bit more efficient, but at the same time they're happier. They're enjoying their life more.
Exactly.
And this is merely the mindset that we can possibly inherit from them and use ourselves in our respective countries as well.
Totally agree with you. It's a no worries lifestyle, we can say, because everything is no worries in Australia. And actually sometimes like one of my like kind of business partner from the industry, she's German. And she's been living in Brisbane in Australia for, I don't know, 20 years or something, but she's German, and she sometimes tells me like she goes crazy sometimes from Australians, because sometimes she needs to really get things done, and there's like no worries, and she's like, no, I do worry. So this is basically like the answer what you're saying. Like, yes, they don't stress that much like we do in Europe sometimes, or even like people in US, maybe they like Western stuff, like they work hard and stress. Like Aussies, like you mentioned, good point, like they try to be more efficient, get the things done in a smarter way, or not smarter way, in a smart way, but at the same time, like, don't be stressed and enjoy the life. It's about like, be family, friends, enjoy the beach, barbecue, etc. So that's about it. Yeah, correct.
That's totally right. I'm actually a big fan of 20-80 rule. Not sure if you've heard about it. That you get 80% of results from 20% of effort that you make.
Oh yeah, kind of. Yeah, I heard it different way, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's correct.
it kind of resembles Australian life in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's good. Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So, well, that's great. Thank you for sharing this with
No
us.
worries.
I'd like to say to all the attendees that we have, this is merely our subjective view of Australia, and
Right.
this is what we enjoy, what we don't enjoy, and some people would have something different opinions. But yeah, well, it's something that you could start from, and then just make it your own. Start researching, get on the internet, try to watch the videos, because there are so many videos about different cities, and you could actually see how people live in those cities, and probably find the best place for you to stay in. And obviously there are popular spots like Sydney and Melbourne, but there are also trade-offs of living in there, because, well, it's probably the cost of studying, the cost of living,
Exactly.
and if you like a quiet lifestyle, why not go to Perth or Adelaide, for example?
Correct.
Yeah, it's all beautiful in there anyway.
Good
Um,
point.
Anywho, I think we will slowly start wrapping things up. We've
Cool.
actually got a question from Julia, and
Okay.
I'm gonna answer that. She's
Mm.
asking about whether it's possible to study for free at a medical university in
Oh,
Australia, specifically at a dental school. Thank you for the question, Julia. I would say that. No, well, we've already covered this, because, well, all of tuition costs are paid for in Australia. So studying in Australia is not free. And we've also covered that it's possible to get scholarships, but they don't typically cover the full cost of studies. And if we're talking about medicine, medicine is the most expensive field of studies, pretty much in any English speaking countries. So if you're going to study for medicine in Australia, you got to make sure that you have a good financial
yeah.
support to do that. Uh,
Unfortunately, it's also really difficult.
mm,
Julia, maybe
mm,
just to comment on
mm,
this,
mm,
it's also really difficult to get into those programs. Like one of my good friends works for the UWA, like University
mm,
of Western Australia, and
mm,
they offer these dentistry programs to
mm.
international students. But there's like
Mm.
4 or 5 spots available only in a class for international. The rest is domestic, and
Wow.
the degree itself is like 4 years, I guess, and it's like
Mm,
$70,000 per year. So it's like you need to invest a fortune into this. So
mm,
that's why,
mm,
unless you have solid financial background, it's really,
mm.
really it's a big challenge, I would say,
It is.
unfortunately.
It is. It is. All right, Ego. I think that's about it, and I was very happy to talk to you. It was
Thanks, appreciate
that's
it. Pleasure. It's
yeah,
always
a
to be.
pleasure.
I was going to say it's always to be a pleasure back in Russia, but actually not at the moment because we got this crazy pandemic. But hopefully we're
Yeah.
gonna be out of this soon,
Hmm.
in the whole world, so we can again
Hmm.
get to enjoy travel, be shake hands, meet in face to face. That would be the best, So let's
Hmm.
hope for the best over here.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thanks.
Well, it's lovely for you to join us. Thank you for sharing your experience. I really hope that it was useful to everyone who was listening to us. I'm just gonna say a few things in Russian for everyone
Cool.
to be able to get some well some extra information from us.
Sure.
Друзья, еще раз были рады бы вас увидеть на нашем вебинаре. Если вдруг у вас возникнут вопросы, они, скорее всего, возникнут, то вы всегда сможете к нам обратиться, вот, как в России, так и в Украине. Здесь сейчас присутствует мой коллега Ростислав из нашего киевского офиса в Украине, поэтому можете обратиться или к нему, или ко мне, или к моим другим коллегам. Вот, вы можете связаться с нами как по телефону, так и по электронной почте. Не стесняйтесь, мы, в принципе, для этого здесь, то есть мы специально делаем подобные мероприятия, чтобы вы смогли задать свои вопросы и узнать чуть больше от нас, потому что, конечно, мы можем говорить чисто о программах обучения, чисто об образовании, но, как сами понимаете, студенты не приезжают на учебу только за учебой, правильно? Они приезжают за стилем жизни, они приезжают за какими-то плюшками, которые дают или не дают некоторые страны. И мы, в принципе, знаем многое об этом и стараемся делиться максимально всем, что мы знаем. Вот. И если даже мы что-то чего-то не знаем, мы знаем, где это найти, как правильно сказал Игорь. Не так уж важно знать, нужно еще также знать, как это найти и как это использовать. И, в принципе, как бы мы стараемся это делать всегда. Я вот не знаю, Ростислав, подключишься к нам на секунду, просто я представлю, если...
Виталий, здравствуй, слышно меня?
Да, 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 да,
Я
слышно.
здесь, у меня не включается камера, видимо, есть ограничения
Ага.
ну, в общем.
Мгм.
Да, ребята, спасибо всем, кто сегодня был с нами. Вы сейчас видите перед собой контакты нашего украинского офиса. Пожалуйста, мы будем ждать ваших обращений, звонков, всегда рады помочь. Если вы не знаете, не определились с будущей карьерой, просто даже страну еще не выбрали, мы всегда вам поможем. Просто позвоните, и мы вам поможем сориентироваться. Виталий подтвердит, самый первый шаг всегда самый сложный.
Мгм.
Просто хотя бы вектор выбрать,
Да.
кем стать, где учиться и все остальное. Мы для этого и есть, поэтому не стесняйтесь,
Мгм.
обращайтесь, мы всегда вам поможем.
Да, спасибо, Ростислав, и спасибо всем, кто присутствовал. Всем хорошего дня, и до новых встреч. Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
thank you, Igor.
До
Thank you.
свидания.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Cheers.